Good afternoon and welcome to This Week in Triathlon. And you can tell from our backgrounds, we're coming to you from a little bit different location this week. It is Championship Week. 70.3 World Championships are being held this week in Las Vegas, which is where my co-host Andres is at currently. So how are you doing, Andres? How's Las Vegas?
It is absolutely super hot around here. Both of us lived in Arizona in the past. Actually, you lived in this neck of the woods for a little while, so we're not surprised that it's this hot. But certainly living in Northern California, I've definitely not gotten or forgot how it feels, and certainly I'm not acclimated to it. But otherwise, it's pretty good. I think it's raining a little bit right now. It's monsoon season, so yeah. I mean, otherwise, aside from those two things, it is Las Vegas, baby.
So you were telling me earlier that people are wearing their training outfits to go to the grocery stores and go out to eat. I wonder if you have anybody on the strip going into the casinos in their tri-suits, doing a little gambling in their Kiwami.
Yeah, I hope so. That'd be kind of cool. But the thing about Las Vegas is nobody would probably look twice at it. You see some freaks out there, and nobody just kind of looks twice. Although if you do have an Elvis costume, or not costume, but tri-suit, it may be quite fitting to pull it out for this week's race.
Right. So obviously, I think the world of triathlon is pretty much orbiting around Las Vegas this weekend. For those that are interested in half Ironman and full Ironman, we are in fully in effect of Ironman season. We have the 70.3 Worlds being held this weekend, and a month from now, we got Kona coming up. So this is really, people are kind of riding into form. Everyone's looking really skinny. Andreas is shaving his beard. Craig Alexander is probably shaving his head as we speak, so everyone's kind of getting in shape. But before we talk about 70.3 Worlds, we did have some interesting races last weekend, most notably MetaMan in Asia, and as well as Hy-Vee, which used to be basically the biggest payout on the circuit, but seems to have kind of taken a couple steps down in the last few years. But let's start with MetaMan. This was a race not a lot of people were really too familiar with when it started last year. Huge payouts for pros. This year it garnered a little bit bigger field. The women's race was won by Caroline Steffen. And did you follow this race at all, Andreas?
I did a little bit, but timing-wise, it was kind of an odd time of the day. I think by the time I'd gone to bed, the men and women were on the bike, and I mean, as much as you could from the time zone that we're in. But certainly I was interested in seeing who was going to take that $40,000 top prize for both men and women.
Yeah, but versus last year, the fields are just were totally different. It was actually a pretty deep field. Obviously, Justin, Belinda Granger, who make their home in Noosa, Australia, went out for the races. Not too long of a flight versus those coming from the U.S. But Team TBB had a couple members represented. David Dello. Do we know what happened to David Dello? He was my favorite kind of going into this race, but it looked like he dropped out from the conditions.
Yeah, I don't know what happened. I know he doesn't seem to be in the results. The other guy who was out there, Courtney Atkinson, was actually doing quite well. He was either in first or in second place, and he ended up dropping out as well. Not sure why, but from what I hear, the conditions are just absurdly hot and humid, and it's really, really tough to gut it out if you're not having a good day.
Yeah, what I've heard it's warmer than Hawaii, than in Kona, and actually more humid. So anyone that's done Ironman World Championships in Kona, how you feel on Elite Drive, where it's very hot, very humid, no wind. I've heard it's like that, but worse, maybe 10, 12 degrees worse than that. So I can't imagine doing a full in those kinds of conditions. So Courtney Ogden, not a big guy. Usually smaller people do a little bit better in those kinds of races. So he won that. And good on Belinda Granger and her husband Justin Granger for both kind of finishing in the money there and kind of winding down their summer season in style at MetaMan.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the prize money, first, second, and third, you get a pretty big drop off from from first to second, and not as huge from second to third, but 40,000 to Courtney. Then second place got 16,000, third place got 8,000. Same for the women, which is cool. It seems like events that are paying different money for men and women are not the norm anymore, which is good to see. The equal payouts, which for a while wasn't necessarily common, but yeah, so $40,000 is quite a bit of money for a non-championship race, and I don't really know what the story behind this race is and why they're offering so much prize money, but somebody's ponying it up, and who knows, maybe next year you'll see a pretty deep field.
Yeah, I don't think this is too far away from Singapore, so I think this is one of the areas of Southeast Asia that actually has quite a bit of money. And sometimes races like this pop up kind of like they do in the Middle East with Abu Dhabi Triathlon, so it doesn't surprise me too much. But speaking of big prize money drop-off, coming to you from Des Moines, the annual Hy-Vee Triathlon. This is a grocery store chain that's primarily in the Midwest, Hy-Vee, the grocery chain, and the prize money for this used to be about $150,000 for the winner. It dropped pretty considerably this year, down to $100,000. But the drop-off between first and second place was $80,000. That's like almost like a month's worth of pay for you, Andreas. That's a lot of money.
Yeah, and if I remember correctly, I saw somebody complain about it or tweet about it and say that, or maybe it was Lauren Goss writing on her blog that it was kind of a shame. But if you want the big money, win the race. It's not like it's not enough money, and there's got to be a reason why the sponsors decided to lower the prize money. Maybe it wasn't as good of a return on investment as they had hoped for, or as good as it was the first time around when it was an ITU, I believe, Olympic qualifier or Olympic trials sort of race as well. So who knows what the reasons are, but if you want the big prize, just win it, which is what Javier Gomez did.
Well, what's interesting, if you look at the difference between fifth place and fourth place, so Lauren Goss, who you're just mentioning, finished 9 seconds between her and fourth place, and that difference was only $500, whereas the difference between second place and first place on the men's side was 12 seconds, only 12 seconds difference between Hunter Kemper and Javier Gomez, and the difference was $80,000. So I have a hard time even saying that with a straight face, but Hunter Kemper must be looking at his running shoes, just wondering, hey, maybe if I went to a little bit lighter racing flat, maybe I could have taken this guy and won 80 grand more. But who knows? Like you said, it's easy just to say just win it and shut up.
Well, I mean, yeah, if you think about it from this point of view, if you're in a hunter's position, you've got quite a bit of an incentive to try to do whatever you can to win. I mean, $80,000 is an insane amount of money for a 12-second difference. So if it was $2,000, maybe it wouldn't be as exciting of a race. Who knows? But I mean, the fact is that's the prize money. They knew it before they signed up for the event, and if they didn't like it, they didn't have to do the race.
Right. So, well, what's interesting to me, kind of the segue here for me into this weekend's race is there are a lot of, this is obviously a Olympic distance race in Hy-Vee. There's been a big shift in the last couple of years from ITU athletes moving up to Ironman distance. You guys like Chris McCormick who have been doing it for about 10 years, kind of moving into it. But recently, we have guys like Jan Frodeno, Bevan Doherty, Olympic medalists that. Lisa Norden, for instance, is racing in 70.3 Worlds. She was Olympic gold medalist in London, and Jan Frodeno was the gold medalist in Beijing. And these guys are moving up now, and it's interesting to see how they're kind of changing the face and how they're changing the way races are competed. Because they're used to draft legal, and now the thought going into this weekend's race, this is going to be a fascinating race to watch because. Some ITU guys have stepped up and had some success, but I don't think we've seen the number of quality guys come up. And not all ITU racers always do well. You got to look at guys like Simon Lessing, who was a legend at the Olympic distance, one of the best triathletes ever, but really struggled when the distances were kind of amped up. So I'm really, really curious to see how guys like Jan Frodeno, Tim Don, Bevan Doherty, and these guys do. I mean, not all of them surely will do great, but it'll be very interesting to see how they all do. And I'm very anxious to see how Lisa Norden does. Annabelle Luxford, these people, they're coming from a world where you can't make any mistakes. You have to make the lead group on the swim if you want a chance to win. So these people can swim. Jan Frodeno, for instance, can swim with Josh Amberger, who's maybe one of the best swimmers in the sport. So you're not going to see someone like Andy Potts come out of the water with 2-minute leads. It's just not going to happen. So it's just going to be a very, very interesting to watch. Any thoughts for you kind of going in this weekend, just initial reaction?
Yeah, no, just to kind of reiterate what you're saying, I feel the same way, that these guys are changing the dynamic of the race, and I have a hard time picking somebody who is not a current ITU or former ITU racer to win this race. I mean, Bevan Doherty, you mentioned, he's been tearing it up this year. I think he's quote unquote the guy to win, just based on his results so far this season. He obviously did well in the ITU and in the Olympics. He's done well at full distance. He's already got an Ironman win. But then you've got guys like Frodeno, who ran an insane, I think it was a 108 with Richie Nichols a few weeks back, and he couldn't find his shoes. So he would probably won that race if he had been able to find his shoes at a T2. But yeah, I mean, I think the days of just having a 70.3 and Ironman and athletes and not worrying about those ITU guys are over. You're going to have a lot more of these guys jumping into the sport, and it'll be a matter of time, I think, before the Brownlees jump in too.
Yeah, but I was thinking about this on my run today, that the thing I love about Ironman and half Ironman is that you really, they talk about working together on the bike, but really you're by yourself. This is a race against the clock. The fastest person is going to win. These races, the winner in Las Vegas, it's going to be a hard course. It's going to be hot, but the winner's going to finish in just under 4 hours. And that's more than twice as much time as it takes these people that are doing the draft legal races. So the amount of just exposure on your body and to incredible amounts of stress is amped up. And whenever that happens, just different athletes tend to do well, and it kind of adds just to the drama and to the kind of X factor of the distance. But what I was thinking on the ride is that I love that there's people like Sebastian Kienle out there that can really just be the ace, in the deck, that who knows if he's going to be able to strike like he did last year on the bike. I would love to see it. But I watched that video that shows him when he made the move on the lead pack, where he made up 3 minutes on the guys that outswam him, caught them, and then blew by them like they were just standing still. So I love that you have an animator like that in the race on the men's side. And on the women's side, you have an animator that's is similarly dominant right now, Melissa Hochschild from Australia, who's obviously a great runner. Her bike has come a long ways. She's not the best swimmer, but she's kind of like Sebastian Kienle, in that she'll come out of the water probably 2, maybe 3, maybe 4 minutes down, and she'll have to bike her way to the front if she wants a chance to win. So it's going to be really interesting just to have those two in the race, and racers like that. They're just so dominant.
No, I agree with you. I mean, you posted the video of Sebastian making that pass last year, and I don't think there's been a moment as exciting as that. We've talked about this a number of times, but half Ironman and Ironman race watching is not the most exciting. So you don't get a lot of these moments where you just go to the edge of your seat and just get really captivated by what's going on. But that was one of those moments. I think the Maka Raylert handshake coming down the last few kilometers of the World Championships, and obviously the Iron War. I mean, you get very few of these moments, and yeah, I mean, I can't disagree with you, and hopefully something like that happens on Sunday. That Sebastian's just not going to be able to do the same thing. It's just, people are most likely not going to let it happen.
Yeah, there is a turnaround on the course, and I think people are really just going to be looking over their shoulders, because he's going to be coming. It's just a matter of when he comes, can the group maintain contact with him? Because he pounced so hard last year. He blew by so hard that I think everyone was just kind of looking around at each other. Andy Potts, Craig Alexander, and so on. They're just kind of looking at each other like, who's going to go? And nobody did. he put 2-3 minutes into everybody, and then they thought, okay, well maybe we'll be able to run him down, or actually, yeah, we'll be able to run him down. And Sebastian went on to run like a 1:16 on a pretty tough course on a hot day, so he was able to hold everybody off.
Yeah, and I'm almost curious to find. It'd be great to have been um, to have the knowledge of what those guys were thinking when that happened at that moment, because I have a feeling that more than one of them said, okay, this is just an intimidation move. He's not going to be able to put more than a minute or two. Or if he does, he's probably not going to be able to hold us off on the run. So I think, based on how they reacted, that probably was their thought process, and he proved them wrong. And this year, that nobody's going to let him get away with that, in my opinion. But they'll be looking for him or somebody like him, which opens up the door for somebody who might be a little bit more obscure, who's not really making as much noise going into the race. So yeah, I mean, he's definitely not the underdog anymore.
Right. No, absolutely. So I threw some picks up onto This Week in Triathlon, and if I on our Facebook page, which our viewers can always tune in to facebook.com/This Week in Triathlon. I did post some predictions there, and I'm kind of curious to know what your thoughts are. But I'm going to start with the women's side. I think the clear favorite, kind of going into this weekend, just based on the last couple months, is Melissa Rollason, who has changed her name to Huschild. She's recently married. I think she's going to win this race. She had a dominant performance at 70.3 Boulder recently, where she came out of the water many minutes back from Dr. Amanda Stevens and Leanda Cave. By the halfway point, she had caught those two, and by the finish of the bike, there was no chance anyone was going to be able to run her down. She was a several-minute lead, and she's also one of the best runners in the sport, if not the best runner in the sport right now. So I think Melissa Huschild is really the dominant force here. I think Heather Jackson's going to get some of that early season form going again. This is a course that I think suits her. She's a little bit smaller. I think she can handle the tougher conditions, and it's going to be hot. So I think she's my favorite for second. I think Leanda Cave, her form is building. I think her mind is 100% focused on Kona, in my opinion. She had a great race in Boulder, even though she was coming back from an injury. She didn't quite have the bike form or the run form, but she's going to be coming out at lead pack in the water. She's a great open water swimmer, and I'm just curious to see how long she can hold off Melissa Huschild on the bike. If she can hold her off, she's still going to need a little bit of a gap on the run, in my opinion, because I think Melissa's just got she's got wheels on her. So then on the dark horse side, Magali Teixeira, we haven't heard a lot from her recently, but the French Canadian Magali Teixeira, I think she makes a return at this race. Her and Brent McMahon have been training hard in Hawaii in the heat, so I think she's going to do great. And then Angela Nath, a hometown resident of Las Vegas. Her form has been kind of suspect recently, but if she can kind of come off the bike, close to the front, I think she might have a chance too. So that's my top five. Any thoughts there?
I've just been horrible about picking winners and podiums over the course of the season. So I know who I'm going to be watching. I don't necessarily know I don't necessarily have an opinion on who's going to finish first, second, third, but you've definitely got some names to watch. Angela Nath, I believe, last season's race, the 70.3 championships, I believe she suffered a crash and actually finished the race. So her result from that race is not indicative of her form, but you have her as a very dark horse, or dark horse, I think is what you called it. She's somebody to watch. I think Heather Wortel, she's a tall drink of water. I think the heat will probably affect her more than it'll affect a Heather Jackson or somebody smaller. So I don't know how that's going to play out into the race, but you can't ever write her off. I mean, Leanda Cave won the race last year. They're probably similar builds. Kelly Williamson, she's kind of had a very low-key season, but she can run, and this bike is not Ironman long, which she's not known to be a strong rider, so she typically loses a lot of time on the bike, but maybe she can run herself into a podium. And actually, a name you probably don't hear about much, and that is Margie Shapiro, who's actually friends with Callie Williamson. She's another one that can run, and she's had some pretty decent results over the course of the season. But there's a few women that can do well. I think it's probably going to come down to some of the names that you mentioned and some of the names that I mentioned, and like you said, anything can happen on a hot day in the desert.
Yeah, and then switching gears to the men's side, Andy Potts, who's arguably one of the best 70.3 racers in history. I think this year he's not going to finish. I don't think he's going to finish on the podium. He finished just off it last year. But starting with my favorites, I'm going to go with my dark horse, Brent McMahon. Had a great race at the U.S. 70.3 Championships in St. George. He's been training hard with Megali Teixeira and his coach I believe in Maui or Oahu in the Hawaiian Islands. So getting used to some hard conditions out there. So he's my darker horse. My dark horse is Tim O'Donnell. Fiance of Miranda Carfrae, Boulder resident. He's got a little bit of altitude in him right now. He had a great race at Brazil 70.3. He's a good swimmer. He's going to be just off the lead pack. He's also a decent cyclist. He's working with Trek now, so he's going to be on the new Trek Speed concept. And he can also run pretty good. So I think he's my favorite for the top Americans. And then third place, Joe Gambles had a great race at 70.3 Boulder. He's focused on this race. His whole season is. He's going to come back and race Ironman Tahoe, where he'll be beat by me. So Joe Shambles is my number three choice there. And then I think Craig Alexander, I think he's going to finish just off the top step on the podium again this year after his second place last year. I think he's going to finish second to Bevan Doherty because Bevan Doherty's just been a stud. The way he dominated Vineman was pretty impressive. He's kind of the total package, two-time Olympic medalist. I think Bevan's going to take this one by the horns.
Yeah, and I don't agree with you that Alexander is going to finish as high as second. I mean, he's been tremendously successful at this distance and obviously at the full distance. But I like a couple of the ITU guys. I really like Ferdinand. I don't know why. There's something about him that is making me pick him for this race to do well, finish in the top three. I like Sebastian. He's the reigning champion. I have a hard time not saying that he's going to factor into the race. I mean, he hasn't had good results this year, not up to his standards, not up to a lot of people's standards. You look at Bart, and I can never say his last name, Arnouts, the Belgian. He can run as well. I think it's going to be it's probably going to be a surprise winner. I think for this year, I'm hoping for that just because it'll give it a little bit of excitement to it, a little bit more than we've already expect from this race. So and then you've got other people like Tim Don and Ivan Rania who could factor into the race just from being successful ITU guys.
Yeah, well, I'll give you my justification real quick for Craig Alexander, why I think he's going to finish so high. He's getting a little bit older, but he has won this race a couple times before. But get this, he runs in Newtons. Craig Alexander is Newton Running's probably premier athlete. He's been running in their shoes for a while. And up until this year, he's been racing in the Newton Distance Racers, right? And it's a nice shoe, looks nice, it's pretty snazzy, but for a racing shoe, it's a little bit heavy. Weighs about 8.5 ounces, and he's going to be racing in the Newton MV3 on Sunday, which is about 3 ounces lighter. So what's interesting about this to me is that Nike, back with Jack Daniels, Dr. Jack Daniels, not the whiskey, but Dr. Jack Daniels, the famous running coach who ran the High Altitude Project in Flagstaff, they did a study where they found if you take about 100 grams off your running shoes, which is about 3 ounces, the difference we're going to see in Craig Alexander's shoes, you save about 1% in your running economy. So over the course of a marathon, it's about 3 minutes. Over the course of a half marathon, it's about 1.5 minutes. So for a guy that's already fast, taking 3 ounces off his shoes, a minute and a half, that's a lot of time. And Craig Alexander, I think that could be his little trick up his sleeve. Is just it's got to be the shoes.
I don't necessarily think that he's going to have a bad race or he's going to finish slower than he would in previous years just because he's a little bit older. I just think that the competition is pretty strong, even from Bevan Doherty, who's been dominating this year. But, going back to what you're talking about in terms of the shoes, I do have a favorite shoe, but I don't necessarily have to run with the same shoe every day. I like to switch them up every now and again. Actually, Andy Potts recently was talking about how even him being, I think he's a Brooks or Mizuno athlete, one
Asics.
of those two, but Asics, that's what it is. But even though he's got his shoe that he uses for races, he also has a couple of other shoes that he likes to mix in for his training runs because he feels like no two shoes, no two models hold your foot the same way. So it actually helps your foot get stronger by running in different models. So he likes to do that. I think that's a good. That's not why I do it. I just like mixing in a number of different shoes. But just going back and tying your point to what I'm trying to say is, I can definitely feel when I switch from Newton's distance runner, which is their standard, the one that I think it's even a little bit heavier than what Craig Alexander wears for racing. I can totally feel the difference, and it might just be in my head, but it might not, when I switch from that over to the Saucony Kinvaras or even the A5s more so than the Kinvaras. So that's a good point, but I still don't think he's going to be he's not going to be in the top two, maybe top three.
Okay, well, you care to put a beer on it?
I think for now I'm. Let me ask you: are you nervous that you might lose the weight competition because you could be up 4 beers, or you're just trying to get greedy and get all the way up to like a case or something?
I want a keg. By the time we hit Kona, for our viewers that don't know, Andreas and I have been going back and forth on bets all year long, and I'm up. I don't think I've lost yet. And right now we have actually a weigh-in competition, which I think we could probably go over the results right now. I weighed in this morning at 126 pounds, which I lost 55 pounds. How many pounds did you lose?
Pictures where it didn't happen.
Yeah, that was with one foot.
I've got a picture. Yeah, no kidding. I've got a picture of mine. I just like I said, I just didn't want to worry about it anymore leading up to the race. It it tends to mess with my head, and if I win or if I lose, doesn't matter. I did as good as I could.
Well spoken.
But maybe you'll get 2 extra beers out of it, which I'm hoping we just cancel it out and we go back to even. In which case, I might be up for a wager on this race.
Okay, well, just switching gears real quick. I'm not sure how many viewers really care about our beer wagers, but I understand you went to the Expo today and got some first-hand look at the new Felt's integrated aero, the new IA from Felt. Any thoughts on that? Is the latest superbike?
Like I said, I was there for a very brief amount of time. I registered. I actually went and ran the one loop of the course, which I can talk a little bit about a little bit later. But I didn't take a close look at the IA. I saw it from a distance. I plan on going back tomorrow and hoping to get a little video from the Felt employees there, just talking about the bike, so that we can post it on the Twit Facebook page. It just looks like it does in pictures. They have it on a stand, one of those that bolts onto the crank arm, so you can't really pick it up and play around too much with it. They're obviously keeping it tight and not letting people mess around with it too much. So hopefully I'll get some more information tomorrow and a closer look. I'll snap some pictures and post them up for people to see.
Okay, cool.
There's quite a bit of commotion down at the Expo. It looks a little bit more crowded than what we saw at Ironman. There's quite a few brands. Specialized was there. Felt obviously. Cervelo has some demo bikes as well as some VIP service that they're offering to their owners. As we lost Kevin for a little bit, but the Expo is actually pretty cool. It is pretty hot. It's about 110 degrees, or at least it felt that way. So it didn't feel necessarily like a place where I would want to stand around and chat for too long with people. But tomorrow I'll go back. I'll take some pictures. I'll take some video, and I'll poke around and try to see what I can come up with for content for this weekend triathlon. It looks like Kevin's trying to join back. We might have him with us again. Looks like I can hear a little bit. I can see his picture, but he is in the high Sierras, so who knows what the coverage and Wi-Fi situation is up there, even though his cabin and everything looks pretty cool. On a completely different note, he did see a bear the other day, and if we get him back on here, maybe we can get the insights on that. But Kevin, are you back?
I am back, but my video camera seems not to be functioning. So can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Oh, there it seems to. You seem to have come back for a little bit. Your face showed up for a brief 2 seconds.
Okay, well, as long as you can hear my voice, but I did see a bear. Yes, that's true, and it got my heart rate going before my swim yesterday. And bear are pretty prevalent up here in the high Sierras, like you said. And I swung my door open to my condo, and the bear was literally looking at me straight in the face. And I've never seen a bear that close in my life, and I didn't realize they could move so fast. So this bear was moving like Usain Bolt, just pulled a 180 and just started sprinting across the parking lot. So it's pretty funny to see.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's a secret that bears are fast. They just don't look it because they're so big, and they're not gracious by any stretch of the imagination. But if you see a bear and you try to outrun the bear, you're probably not going to be successful. So luckily that wasn't the case for you.
Right. Well, I did actually see 2 more bears running last night down by the river. So, I think I could do without seeing any bears for a while. I think I've got my quota for the rest of my life.
I'm actually a pretty big animal guy. I think if I ran into your situation and I saw some bears, I might be in trouble because they don't look mean. They look fairly harmless. I mean, unless they show some teeth or show their paws to you. But I would probably try to get too close, and something bad would probably happen. So better you than me. You're probably smarter when it comes to that. But I've never seen one. I don't know how freaked out I would be, but I have a feeling I would try to get as close as possible and probably end up dead.
Well, I'm not sure if you had a chance, but while I was away, did you get a chance to talk about the run course at all?
No, I didn't. I was talking about how the Expo, it felt like it was at least 110 degrees, so it's not a terribly inviting atmosphere to be walking around and checking stuff out, but I will go back tomorrow. But I did get to go out on the course and do one of the loops. And yeah, I mean, it's not a flat course, it's not a hilly course, it's just kind of in the middle. None of the rises are very steep. I think most of what you're going to get is like a 5% at most. But the heat is just it's killer. There's some shade around on the course, but it's just the heat is just going to be the factor that throws people off the most, in my opinion. You start out, just to give you a description, you start out by running out of transition, and you go downhill for a little bit, probably for about a mile and a half at most, and okay. Then you do a little turnaround and head back up towards transition and towards what's the main quote-unquote climb, which is off of Green Valley Parkway, I believe is the name, and then you just head back to Transition. So it's pretty basic. You're either going up or you're going down. I'm not quite sure if I've decided what my strategy should be, if I should conserve energy on the uphills or the downhills, but I'm going to have to figure it out rather quickly.
And what kind of shoes are you going to be running in on Sunday?
You know, I'm a big fan of the Saucony A5s. They're probably good enough for me up to about this distance. I don't think I could run in them for a full marathon, but you know, I like how light they are. They get rid of water if I dump water on them fairly quickly. They have enough support for me. I'm a fairly heavy guy. Even at my lightest, which is right now, it's still about 180 pounds or so around there. But yeah, I'm going with the A5s.
Very good.
So, you know, tell me. I mean, I don't know if you've done this course as part of the Silverman, which is what it used to be called. But when you run a course that's got just primarily uphill and downhill, and there's very little flat, how do you approach it? Do you try to hammer on the uphills and just kind of try to get your heart rate back down on the downhills, or do you do the opposite? How do you attack it?
Well, I try to not let myself get too carried away on the uphills. I try to shorten my stride a little bit, try to keep my cadence and my technique as good as I can on the uphills, and really focus on the transition from the uphill to the crest of the hill to the downhill. I think a lot of people, when they hit the crest, they almost keep running like they're still running uphill for 100 yards. So I think if you can work on kind of transitioning off the hill, get some speed going over the top, onto the flat, the false flat, and onto the downhill. And on the downhill, just remember it's a race. It's not training. You can kind of trash your legs a little bit. So just really, open up your stride, pump your arms, try to keep your core nice and strong and tight, and make sure you're just not trying to break yourself slowing down. So try to really get your turnover going on the downhills, and try to keep yourself in check on the uphills. And I think you'll have a great race, especially when it's hot, like it will be in Las Vegas.
You know, the other thing about this course that's kind of a mental battle is the fact that it's 3 loops, and it's not as bad as a 3-loop Ironman course because the loops are twice as long. But you're running past that finish line. I mean, you're running past it 5 times before you actually get to it. So that's a little bit of a mental battle that I'll probably have to be dealing with. It's tough to go by the place where you're finishing when you're not finishing. But yeah, I mean, it's not going to be easy, but it's also, I mean, the heat's really what's going to make this a tough race, in my opinion.
Well, the faster you bike, the faster you swim, the faster you run, the faster you'll be done, and it does heat up rather quickly. So after 11 o'clock in Las Vegas, you want to be off the road if you can. I know a lot of people will be racing, past noon. So yeah, after 11 o'clock, it just gets unbearable.
Speaking of the heat, I want to talk a little bit about the race helmet that I'll be using. Is that okay with you?
Yeah, let's see it.
So just to give you and everybody a little bit of background on what happened is, so I have a cast Bambino that I like to use. It works well. I like the short tail. I don't have a position that's great for a long tail helmet because it never seems to sit flush with my back. So the short tail just kind of works. And I obviously, being the time of the year that it is, and that we're in Vegas, and everybody telling me how hot it's going to be, I decided to bring a second option, a little bit more vented option, and that's I'll show you guys. I'll show you and the rest of our viewers. This is a Casco helmet. It is called the Speed Aero helmet, and if you look at it closely, it looks very similar to a Giro Air Attack. I mean, it's similar concept. It's a short tail, well ventilated helmet that's designed primarily for aerodynamics for road racing. It's got the built-in visor, which, unlike the Giro, there's no option to wear it or not. If you don't want to wear it, it has to sit up like that, which seems to defy the you know the aero benefits to it. So, but anyway, going back to what I was saying, I decided to bring this helmet just in case that it'd be the cask would be too hot, and I think it will be. And the reason why I'm able to use this helmet, it's not CPSC certified, but because it is a world championship, they do allow it primarily because there's a lot of international racers that I think they don't want to make people buy a helmet just to race in the U.S. So I think that's the main reason for it. I did have to sign my life away, or at least a waiver saying that I understood the consequences of racing without a CPSC certified helmet. But I think the trade-off will be well worth it.
Do you have the cask helmet there as well, if it's handy?
I do actually.
I would love to see those two helmets just kind of side by side, just to see kind of what the size comparison looks like and the profile comparison.
Well, why don't I'm gonna have to walk off screen for a couple of seconds, but I'm gonna put up this little thing and let you talk about how people could get in touch with us and maybe get a little bit of free swag.
Well, we always invite our viewers on This Week in Triathlon to participate in the show by asking any questions or perhaps even being on the show. We've had lots of vendors and athletes come on to talk about some of their experiences training and racing, so we always invite people to come on and participate. You can always join the conversation on Twitter, and This Week in Triathlon can also be found on Facebook, on facebook.com/This Week in Triathlon. And we also have a lot of great swag from some of our partner companies, K-Edge Chain Catchers, Infinite Nutrition, Shimano. So all you got to do is drop us a line on Facebook or Twitter for a chance to win some awesome swag, and we'd love to send it your way. So let's take a look at those helmets.
So it's a little bit hard to get both on screen. I'm going to back up a little bit, but here's the cask. Here's the casco. Can you see those?
Yeah.
So fairly similar in size. Obviously, the ventilation aspect of it is what's driving me to use the casco. I think it's going to make a big difference. Also, I don't have the visor for the cask. And let me get the screen back up. I don't think it's on. My screen is not up, but I'd love to wear the helmet with my brand on it. It's extra branding, but this is a championship race. Not that I'm aiming for a podium, but I do want to have a good race. And it's not very often where you can use a non-CPSC certified helmet in the U.S. So what better way to try it? Before I turn it over to you. There's that little rule about not using something new on race day, and somehow I always find something new. I don't know what it is. I'm pretty sure that it's a disease. There's a name for it somewhere, but I always find something new to try, and in this particular case, it is the helmet and my Tier Torque swim skin.
Oh no! Well, the swim skin. Just make sure you use lots of lube around your neck and shoulders, because those things can chafe you pretty bad if you're not used to it.
Well, I will be trying it on tomorrow at the practice swim, so I probably will get a decent idea of how it how it feels in the water. But yeah, I need all the help I can get when it comes to swimming. I mean, I think we all know that.
Okay, well, Andres, I want to wish you well, and any of our viewers that are participating this weekend, I wish them well also, and just stay safe out there with your unsafe helmet. Don't die. And I'll be happy to wear your cask helmet in a couple weeks here at Ironman Tahoe.
Yeah, you'll be extra happy because it won't be sweaty from all this heat. That's for sure. And yeah, if you want to track, obviously Ironman is doing they're bringing out their A team for this race. Matt Lieto, who I think, in my opinion, does a really good job. He's actually pretty insightful and pretty funny. But they'll have full-on coverage for this race at Ironman.com, and I believe the hashtag on Twitter is IM703 no dot Las Vegas or Vegas. I can't remember which one, but one of those two. But I'm excited, and yeah, we'll have to report how it went next week.
Absolutely. Well, we're looking forward to getting some insights. So if you could take some pictures when you're at the expo, we'll get some video of that Felt IA, and good luck this weekend, Andreas.
All right, Kevin. Thanks again, and we'll see everybody next week.
Sounds good.